I guess I'm gonna have to just manually swap between us.
Should we do Zoom? I think Zoom does it automatically.
Whatever. I can just click when you're talking, and I'll click when I'm talking. It's too
It's a
late
lot of
now. We're
work.
already live, baby.
How am I going to interrupt you?
If you start talking, I'll just click on you.
All right.
I'll hear you. Center yourself a little bit. Actually, you can be off to the side. It doesn't matter. Let me make sure we're live. Look, man, this is not
We're
gonna
live.
be. This is not gonna be a perfect situation.
Seems pretty
This is
perfect
an
to me.
impromptu debate.
Epstein killed himself.
Great. Well, now the stream's been blocked forever because you have.
Somebody said that in the chat.
Well, does that mean you have to repeat everything you hear in the chat? Everything
No,
you hear. All right, we're live.
Okay.
I know. I get it. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the first and what I hope will be a thrilling series of debates involving a number of different topics which are of interest to the general public. My name is Vito Giswaldi. You may know me as the host of many hilarious programs on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Vito. And I'm joined today by a friend and nemesis of mine, the good Max Carson, also known as Mr. Girl. How are you, Mr. Girl?
I'm pretty good, Vito. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, things are going well. Your life is a little exciting. You've recently moved.
Well, it just got a lot less exciting. I was living in LA and now I'm living in Oregon, in Eugene.
I'm looking out that window. I feel like you've purposefully set up your webcam to taunt me with the promise of rolling hills and gorgeous nature.
Me walking off with 8 fingers and a backpack.
You've literally got the guitar in the window, you cocksucker.
I do. That's right. That's right. So
and Mr. Girl,
you know how serious I take this.
I do. Real quick, for people, we'll do a plug at the intro. How do people find you? And then we'll do it again at the end.
You just
how would people know you? I guess you could say.
They wouldn't. I have like no subscribers. Nobody would know me.
Right. Well, maybe because you have garbage opinions is part of the problem.
They're presented very well, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I'd say let's just get right in. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sure. You're wrong.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot I have to keep clicking to me to not just see you. All right, now I remember to do it. All right. What were you going to say? Sorry.
I was going to say that you're wrong. Your opinion on The Last of Us is wrong. And you know what? I'm going to go as far as to say I don't even believe that you believe your own opinion. I don't think you mean it.
Well,
I don't think you really mean it. It's not when you say, you know, it's not trash.
Well, to be fair, maybe I have maybe the title of this debate does not does it make it sound like I'm arguing from the position of trash? I guess to put it in more honest terms, I think the game is fundamentally flawed. The storytelling is fundamentally flawed, and it is a flaw from which it cannot possibly rectify. And you, on the other hand, I know that you believe Last of Us 1 was I don't know how you termed it, but I know that you loved that game with as a piece of cinematic excellence. Whereas I have always found the Last of Us series and this idea of realistic storytelling in general to be absurd. It's an absurdity. You can't have a realistic game because games by their very nature are not realistic, and I think it's absurd to try and say otherwise.
I don't think that it markets itself as realistic. I think it deals with real emotions, but so do lots of games. I mean, you're drinking or eating supplements to learn how to craft 2 arrows at a time. Like, it's obviously not supposed to be realistic. I disagree with you there. And it's a zombie game. You know, if it were a game about like inner city kids dealing drugs and their lives being ruined by horrible conditions and upbringings and getting AIDS and stuff, and then you kill 50 people between missions and it was supposed to be this like serious social commentary, then I would totally agree with your criticism. But it's a zombie game with people turning into big mushrooms that throw pieces of themselves at you. You know, it's not. I that's a straw man argument, Vito, and I can't let you get away with it.
I don't think it is a straw man. I think, now, obviously, there are supernatural elements within the game. There are zombies of some sort. Though the game does try to occasionally gives some level of plausibility to the zombies. Obviously, it throws it out the window and gives you stupid boss battles or whatever else. The problem I have is, and here's the theory that I'm working through, that I'm trying to figure out. What does and we're focused on the story, people here who are tuning in for the debate. I think both me and you would agree that the game mechanics are solid.
Yes.
I think the game.
You gave it a 7 out of 10. I think maybe a 9 out of 10 would be more appropriate. But
I give it a 7 out of 10 because I think the bullet scavenger hunt is obnoxious and stupid, and it's a waste.
You can
of my
turn
time.
up the amount of supplies that you find. Did you?
I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to have to customize my game experience. You, as the developer, should figure out the correct way that you want me to play my game.
Yeah, but that just means you don't like survival games. That's a core aspect of survival games, is that you don't have enough.
It's not really a survival. Well, like a survival horror.
Like
you're
Resident
saying?
Evil. Yeah,
Resident Evil. Those games are also bad, except for 4, which gives you lots and lots of ammo. All the ones that don't give you ammo are bad.
Okay, so I would say that maybe you just don't like them. If you're gonna say that all zombie horror survival games are bad, I think it might be more fair to change the name of your review to "I personally don't like zombie horror games, and I played one anyway, and I didn't like this one."
A review is a subjective score. It's not an objective. There's no objective criteria.
It is, but you don't review a romantic comedy movie and say, "Oh, by the way, I fucking hate romantic comedies, but this one in particular is bad." And someone says, "Well, what about When Harry Met Sally?" And you say, "Oh, that one's bad too." It's like, okay, you just don't like them.
I can review whatever the fuck I want. Okay, and if you go in, okay, but if somebody goes, and if you're a big survival horror fan, and you want to be like, Vito does not respect survival horror, you don't have to watch my reviews, right?
Okay.
Also, Metal Gear Solid is better.
Yeah, it always comes back to Metal Gear Solid, doesn't it?
Well, because Metal Gear Solid perfected this action level gameplay, and I don't understand why. Just do that. It's better.
Because it wouldn't work for. It's not scary. You're like a god.
Were you scared playing the game? I wasn't really scared. You were.
A couple times. Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to remember if I got spooked at any points. I mean, there's probably a jump scare here or there.
I think the few times where you're just walking into like at the hotel part where something just like rolls out in front of you, or just like noises, that's scary. It's not really scary once you're actually fighting the zombies. I think they needed more zombie types, which is why I would only give it a 9 out of 10 on the gameplay. I'm with you there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get the gameplay discussion out of the way. I feel like most encounters felt pretty much the same to me. You know, and they're fun gun battles, but they give you slightly different environments. Some of the environments might have like multiple tiers or whatever else, but I don't know. It just felt like there wasn't enough. As you were saying, maybe there should be more zombie types or more enemy types. It was interesting when, you know, kind of these bruisers would show up who could take 2 shots to the face without dying or whatever else. I just felt like there wasn't enough variety, and that combined with the lack of just supplies, I was like, this is kind of... It was fine. I liked it. I really did enjoy shooting stuff in that. I would give it a 7.5, maybe an 8 after playing Ghost of Tsushima and being reminded of how bad combat mechanics can be.
Games are bad. Most games are bad.
Well, I mean, what do you mean when you say most games are bad?
More bad. Most big AAA games are kind of bad. More than most like movies or TV shows. There's just like a level of not engagingness that is like acceptable in games that just isn't like I don't know why, but it's just totally fine to put out a game that just isn't fun to play.
Yeah, well, I mean, games are an interesting medium, and here's where. So this is a very interesting topic that I've been trying to like figure out. I just said
this is a joke debate.
It's somebody's saying it's a joke debate.
The joke debate. This is like one of the best-selling games of all time. So no, it's not. 10 out of 10, amazing game. Okay, anyways, what are you saying?
You're saying it's a 9 out of 10 though, because other people have scored it a 10 out of 10.
Gameplay, I would say.
Gameplay 9 out of 10. Are you gonna say the story now? In terms of video game storylines, and you loved Last of Us 1, is this top 5 video game stories of all time?
Yeah.
Top 3.
Yeah.
Is it the greatest video game story ever told? And that's the question.
I would say the two together.
The Last of Us series tells the greatest story ever told in the medium of video games. Is that your assertion?
I wouldn't say that the story itself is that great because it's like very simple and kind of trite, and nothing happens in it really. So
you're saying Last of Us is that way?
Yeah, you can't say that the story itself is like, oh, like how imaginative. It was a zombie outbreak, and then the girl was immune, and then she bonded with an older man, and like, oh wow, like it's not innovative.
It's not high art. It's not Shakespeare.
It's
Shakespearean in a way.
The way it is told is the best. The craft is the best. Not the story itself. Almost doesn't even matter. Like my favorite movies, like Die Hard or Terminator. Terminator has a good story, but like Die Hard or The Empire Strikes Back, they're very simple stories where like not much happens in them, but it's the craft that makes the difference to me. So
what I'm hearing from you is the idea that though the story itself might not be, the greatest story ever gifted to man, it does set out the template for which you think other story-based games should follow. The method of storytelling is what is the excellence.
Yeah, I mean, starting The Last of Us 1 with Joel's daughter dying, it sets the tone of like, you're going to meet characters, and you might even play as those characters, and they could fucking die at any moment. Because that's how this fucking horrible world is. And it makes it actually dramatically tense when you know that they're willing to kill off any character at any time. So then when Joel almost dies, and you think he might be dead halfway through the game, when he survives, it's actually a surprising reversal because you think that you think that anything could happen.
Well, I have no problem with the way that you're saying, just the way that people are killed at random is good in a way that it's not expected.
The way the stakes feel real. There's like a bubble of protection around Mario or Horizon Zero Dawn bitch or whoever. Most main characters' games have I think that was her character's actual name. I think it was Horizon Zero Dawn.
That was her name in the game. I never played Horizon Zero Dawn. I can't vouch for that.
It said that in the credits. I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering. There's a bubble of protection around most video game characters that the characters in The Last of Us just don't have. And emotional protection too. They suffer in ways that they can suffer in ways that you just don't see in other games.
Real quick, I want to say thank you to Axel VS for super chatting SEC50. I have no idea what that is. Thank you. I keep forgetting to put myself on the camera. I mean, I would disagree with your assertion, though. Like, at any point playing The Last of Us, playing Last of Us 1, did you think that Joel might die?
Yeah, I thought he might die. There's a part where he gets impaled on that, like, rebar. And then it starts over and you're just Ellie. And there's no mention of him. You're like hunting a deer and then you're looking for medical supplies. But yeah, I thought he might die.
I never got... I mean, he's the main character of the game. What would have happened if he had died? The game just ends?
No, you start playing as Ellie when, at the moment they do the fake out where you think he might have died, you take over and start playing as Ellie.
Okay, we're talking about Last of Us 2 right now. So you're saying
Last of Us 1. In Last of Us 1, you play as Ellie for one of the 4 seasons.
Okay. It has been a while since I played Last of Us 1. So you thought maybe he might die. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Joel gets impaled and then you play as Ellie and you have to like fight cannibals that try to eat you and rape you, and then Joel comes back and saves you. Actually, he doesn't save you. He just holds you as you cry after you are almost raped. Which again is not something that's discussed in most video. It's just boring playing games. It's boring playing games knowing that there's a certain circle of events that could happen, and they all happen in every game, and it's not interesting. And so playing a game where I genuinely I know that they are willing to push boundaries is much more interesting to me.
Did you ever play Final Fantasy VII?
No.
Okay. Well, not to give you a big spoiler right off the bat, but a player character does die in that game. It's not like this is some unprecedented idea. And I believe at the time it was considered shocking to kill off a player character. But I don't see this idea of killing off a player character as something that Last of Us is uniquely offering to you.
Sure. I mean, like Mass Effect kills characters all the time too. I think that's it. Or
Well, yeah. So okay. So here's the question: is and let me give you my assertion. My assertion is, and it's a little complicated. I'll try. I've tried to break it down as simply as I could, and here's what I've come up with. One, any video game storyline, by its very nature of being a video game, has to be an abstraction. Because you have handed the player control. The player has control over parts of the story. You platform. You have made that choice, and the story has changed according to your actions.
yes.
Because of that abstraction, trying to tell a realistic game or a story which presents would you say that Last of Us 2 has realistic characters?
I would say it has realistic. They're definitely diluted down to like their core. They don't really talk and act like real people, but there are moments that feel like they are more like real conversations or real emotions that are expressed in real life than any game I've ever played.
And I will say that while there are parts of Last of Us 2 where I did honestly feel something for the characters, I was like, okay, this feels like something, right?
You said that you didn't. Okay, continue.
Did I say, well, that
you
was...
said you don't care about the characters.
Because here's the thing, is those moments where I care about the characters, it's immediately revealed as a facade. Okay? Whatever I feel for Ellie goes out the window the second I go back to stabbing 20, 30 people in the neck. What I felt for her character during, the brief scene where she's going around the museum with Joel and they're having a little father-daughter moment, it's comical. It's comical because I now know this character isn't real. Because in real life, nobody stabs 30 people in the neck and comes out of that experience. I don't know. I don't know what you would come out of that experience. I can't point to anyone in history who's ever stabbed 30 people in the neck. I know, just running around for funsies.
Look, if you're saying you don't like The Last of Us 2 because you thought it was real for a second and then you realized it wasn't, what do you want me to say to that?
But it tries to be real. Go ahead.
Every video game character is a mass murderer.
Yes.
Every video game character is a mass murderer. This is the only game that not one of the only games. So people are saying Call of Duty. There are other games where that actually Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead. There's a lot of games that do this, but I would say it is the only game that maybe plunges the deepest depths of what that means for you as the player. What I like about Naughty Dog is they're like, we're going to have two franchises. And one is going to be a swashbuckling, fun action movie joke where it's just funny that Nathan Drake is killing 800 people. Like
which I also find an absurdity. When I played that original Uncharted, I'm like, how's this guy just callously laughing as he murders hundreds of people?
Right, but that's part of the joke of the game is that he's a fucking sociopath. If he was real, he'd be a sociopath. But in the game, it's like, these people are disposable. Who gives a shit? And that game still manages to have some real emotions, like with his wife and his brother and all that stuff. And then The Last of Us is like, we're only going to make... This is why The Last of Us the sequel had to go the way it went, because they're only going to have a sequel if they can create a character that really would kill 800 people. So Ellie becomes so twisted and so fucked up because if she doesn't, then there's no game anyway.
But then I feel no sympathy for her. Any sympathy I feel for her, I shouldn't have any because she's a monster. She's a monster of a woman. She kills so many people. Those people.
That's the challenge of the game. Is can you have sympathy for a monster?
No, but you shouldn't because she.
Vito says Last of Us is immoral. Make that the title of the video.
It's not that it's immoral. It's that it's a comedy. That it gives you a woman who kills. I didn't do the body count, but let's say 100 people. Did she kill? What, 50 people, 100 people in the game? She probably killed 50 people in the last game, 50 people in this game.
I would say it's more like 200. But okay, it's a lot.
So she has killed 200 people. Okay?
Yes.
And then they give me this little moment where you go to the museum and you're just a little girl hanging out with your dad. And I'm like, oh my God, this is sweet. I feel something. And then you go back to killing 100 people. And I'm like, this is...
And you
How
felt
do
the
you
same
come
way
to how do you come to
about,
terms with that character?
but that's every video game character kills 200 people or more.
But every video game does not try to disguise itself as being this realistic simulation with hyper real character models and professional voice acting talent and everything else. Other games wisely and correctly, I would say, dress themselves up in the trapping of fantasy so that the witnesser can understand that there is a disconnect between them and the clearly unreal action that is taking place within the game. The point is that if you wanted to tell this kind of story with these kind of, you know, with a character who does horrible things or whatever else, but, you know, he's still a real character and looks real and whatever, just make a fucking movie. What benefit is... How does Last of Us 2 benefit from being a game instead of a movie?
Hang on. You're making like 3 different points at the same time.
Very possible.
Your first point is that The Last of Us is too realistic, and thus you cannot empathize or care about the characters because the things they're doing are too bad.
It's not that they're too bad. It's that, well, it's that I know that they're not real. I just... No, whatever.
They're not real. I know they're not real too. It's not like I'm enjoying the game because I think it's really happening.
Okay. So your question was, is it because they're too bad?
It just sounds like you're you sound like those hand-wringing parents who are saying that video games make us immoral people and violence in games causes violence in real life. Yeah, we know it's not real. We're gamers. Gamers know it's not real.
It's not that I say it's going to lead to any real-world repercussions. It's that I, as the viewer, feel like I am living an absurd... It just feels absurd to me that I'm supposed to feel something for this character who the game has told me, or the game has shown me, is
a bad person.
Not a bad person. The worst mass murderer I've ever seen in a medium. Okay?
That's not true. That's not true. Solid Snake has killed way more people than Ellie.
Okay, but Solid Snake knows he's in a video game. Ellie doesn't know she's in a video game. That's the difference. Metal Gear is aware of itself, and that's where a game, I think, has to be aware of itself. It has to know...
There's a scene in Last of Us 2 where you find a porno tape
magazine
called Smash Brandy's Cooch. Like the game acknowledges that it's a game. She's eating supplements. I don't buy that. The game is very gamey. It's not like Detroit Become Human. That game, I would say the characters do not know they're in a game. I'll give you that. Yeah. But
well, I actually
even just
I would almost defend Detroit Become Human because I don't see that as a game necessarily. I see that as a movie, an interactive drama. Yes.
Yeah. And the characters don't kill 200 people. But I don't know. They're like, what do you think our kill count was for today? Like Dina asked Ellie, and it was like, is this the most you've ever gotten? Like I don't agree that they don't know that they're in a game. I just don't think that games have to be the emotions. It just sounds like it's too like disturbing to you. And
here's what it really comes down to is I'm not going to say you can't tell a realistic story through games because I will admit that
I don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's trying to be realistic.
The characters are trying to be realistic. The characters are trying to have very real emotions and very real and the things that are affecting them, they react to them in realistic ways, and they're not, you know, fighting robots or whatever the fuck else. It's trying to be... I would say that it feels that it is a semi-realistic game, that it strives towards realism. That is important for the people making it. What was real?
Like the emotions in a story can be realistic without the story. I just think that you're conflating the two, the emotions being realistic and it being realistic. It's a zombie game.
I feel like the zombies are an excuse. Go ahead.
It's a discussion of grief and loss and sexuality using zombies as a medium.
Okay, but how can you have a serious discussion about grief and loss when one of the characters... Like, how am I supposed to empathize with her losing Joel when I know that her and Joel spent the last game killing 200 people? It's an absurdist idea. There is no logical connect between your actions in the game and the storyline itself, or whatever connection there is. It is so flimsy.
If you want to empathize with something that's easy to empathize with, then watch Bambi.
Real quick.
Bambi's a story.
Yeah, go ahead.
What? No,
go ahead. Go ahead. Bambi's a story about what? A deer that dies. Everyone said
it's a cute little harmless blah blah blah, and her parent dies right in front of her, and then she's never done anything wrong, and she's a very simple, straightforward, purely good character that fucking you think it's easy to empathize with, as opposed to the challenge of The Last of Us is, can you empathize with a monster? That is the point of the game. Is watching.
Can you empathize with the worst one of the worst monsters that you've ever seen in any literary medium? In this context,
that is an exaggeration, but
I don't see how it is an exaggeration. Okay, she is a worse murderer than any movie character I've ever encountered. How's that?
Any main character in a movie?
I'm trying to think of a movie where the main character kills, I guess Luke blows up the Death Star and kills 1 million Star Destroyers, but hey, that's a little bit different than individually slitting their necks.
It is. Neo kills a lot of people.
Yeah, but those are computer programs, right? Real quick, Robot Rumble's going to pose you a question, or at least a point. Robot Rumble says, Solid Snake can go through the game with only knockouts and tranquilizers. Ellie is forced to kill to proceed in each set piece.
If you go through Metal Gear Solid using knockouts and tranquilizers, you're a little bitch.
Come on now.
The game is clearly not designed. Like, yes, okay. Have you played Postal 2?
Yes, I have played Postal, and not too much because I kind of got bored of it quickly. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's not good, but it's funny commentary because the goal of each level is like, go buy milk at the grocery store. And then they give you a flamethrower and a shotgun, but you don't have to kill anybody. Literally, your goal is to wait in line, deal with all the annoying people, buy the milk, and walk back home, and then you complete the level. And like the joke is like, of course you're going to start shooting people because the game puts a gun in your hand. So I don't buy that. I agree with Vito here that the character of Snake it does exist in a game, and the game is about shooting and killing people in funny ways. I understand it's about more than that, but that is a core component of the game. Like, I also, there's no cutscene where Snake kills anybody. That's seems like not true.
It's a good question. I don't know if anyone's ever killed by Snake in a cutscene. Let me get back to what I think is the point. Whereas, I am even willing to say that if you can suspend your disbelief and put things out of your head and go, yes, I know I just killed 200 people, but let me try to contextualize that and assume that I only actually killed 20 people for this story to work, which I think you have to do. Would you agree with that? That you, as the person witnessing the story, you have to contextualize the hundreds of deaths?
I'm not anti-killing. I play the game because I fucking like killing people.
I'm not saying that you have to be anti-killing. I'm saying in your head that if you
arm off and watching her roll around and scream for her friends who call her by her name. The whole game is about enjoying killing people. I'm not like,
well, that's the problem. If you enjoy killing people, what possible moral can you wring out of this game about grief and loss? If you're telling the player,
that's what the game defies a simple moral message. As I'm sure Solid Snake.
I don't think it defies a simple moral message. I think it tries to present a moral message, and that moral is inherently flawed. It is insane.
I don't think it presents one. There's people in the game who you're supposed to enjoy killing. The Rattlers, like, they're just slavers and rapists. You're supposed to enjoy killing the Rattlers.
I think I just broke this. The Rattlers at the end, the worst chapter in the game, you mean?
Yeah, what? It's either it's biological or it's a choice. One can be cured, the other is a fetish. I don't know what are we talking about.
Double Dropped has dropped $5. He says, if you can't be invested in the world or characters because it is a game, doesn't that say something about the writing quality? Is that an argument me or you has made? I don't believe so.
Well, I think he's saying that since you said if it were a movie, you'd be more on board with it. Because if it were a movie, Ellie wouldn't kill 200 people. She'd kill like 5 people.
Right. And then it would be easier to put her actions into context.
Yeah, her level of remorse seems appropriate for 5 people. It doesn't seem appropriate for her being a total mass murderer, which is I agree is immersion breaking.
Well, there you go.
It's an immersion.
What else is left to talk about at that point? Go ahead.
To me, that's just a flaw in the medium. We don't have, like, Alien Isolation stands out as a game where you can stretch an encounter with one enemy out for 15 hours and have it be pretty engaging. But basically, most video game characters, including Mario, are mass murderers.
Okay.
And it's just, in games, just ask you to, like, hey, so in this part, you're supposed to be excited because it's a cutscene. You're excited that the person might fall off a cliff, whatever. And then 2 seconds later, you're jumping from thing to thing and flying around and swinging on vines. That's just part of the trappings of gaming. I think that as games get more realistic, or there's other ways for them to be more engaging, they'll probably be less arcadey. But I don't think that is, I think that is an excuse you're using to apply to The Last of Us 2 that is relevant with the discussion of any game. At least The Last of Us 2 attempts to acknowledge it.
I agree that it applies to any game, and it is an inherent flaw that video games have when trying to tell a story.
So then what is your fucking problem with Last of Us 2 specifically
because other games have found ways to address that incongruity, which involve using various trappings of fantasy or other ways to suspend the character's disbelief, and not trying to trap you in this world of hyper-realistic characters and environments which are better suited for any other medium. Where video games, if you're trying to tell that story, again, you could go make a movie and it would be fundamentally better because the abstractions of character death and mass murder and the concept of murder being fun, you can't tell the kind of story that Last of Us 2 is telling as effectively as you could tell it in a movie. You can tell that story. It works if you turn off parts of your brain, but it would have been better in a different medium if you're trying to tell a story. If you're trying to make a game, fine, I get it, but why would you try and fill your game with... At that point, you're just watching a movie in between a shooting gallery. The movie and the game are not tangentially connected to each other in any meaningful way.
They are. But I agree that there is a suspension of disbelief that has to happen between these cinematics when you're just shooting lots of people. Definitely. But are your main argument is that this fact that you have to kind of switch gears between cutscenes and mass murder scenes makes it so that you cannot connect emotionally to the characters? That's basically what you're saying.
Yes, my attempt to emotionally connect to them is constantly revealed. I'll give you the exact. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, what characters do you have strong feelings for Solid Snake? Like, do you care about him more than Ellie? I don't believe that.
Sorry, I got something in my throat. Here's the thing about Metal Gear Solid and here's what I think about video game storylines in general, is that it's not necessarily... I don't think games communicate characters very well. I think games convey moods very well. And that is what I think video game storytelling should focus on, is creating a mood, rather than trying to bog the player down.
Again, this is not a criticism of The Last of Us 2. You're saying that you don't think games, period, should focus on character. And The Last of Us is obviously all about character.
That is probably part of it, yes. Is that I don't think games... I think if... You can focus on the character if the character is self-aware in a way where the character... I'm not saying the character has to straight out say, I'm in a video game, hey, let's go. But that the character... Snake does that, right? Snake at one point does acknowledge he's in a video game, yes. Okay. And I'm not going to say that that's the perfect way to do it, but the occasional acknowledgement that, yes, it is crazy that we are telling a story where the main character has died a couple hundred times. If you tried to do that in a movie or a book or anything else, you'd be like, why does this guy keep dying and getting to retry that encounter? It's bizarre. And you as the player have to contextualize that abstraction in your head. You have to go, well, you know, maybe that's an alternate universe, or maybe I just don't pay attention to it because that's part of video games. And that's...
You said in your...
Go ahead.
You said in your review that you don't care about characters in games.
I cannot get attached to a character in a game the way I might be able to get attached to a character in a movie, because the character in the game will always be an abstraction of my actions and the character. Okay, and I guess maybe
once again, this isn't specific to the last. Like, the chat is going crazy. Not without steroids. Are you talking about Abby? You think Joel's gonna fucking look like that without steroids? You think Joel's gonna look like that at 60 without steroids? Everybody in every game is on steroids. Shut the fuck up.
I'm fine with how Abby looks. All right, whatever.
I'm more than fine with how Abby looks.
Yeah, you like.
I want her to squeeze me like a grapefruit. Listen, the chat is on a totally different wavelength from you. They're acting like they're saying I'm an idiot, I'm a SJW, I'm a Biden voter, or whatever, because I'm defending this game. But their problems with the game are totally different from yours. You're saying that games should not bet their lives on trying to make me care about a character, because I don't care about characters in games.
I'm saying I have trouble caring about a character when their actions are contextualized. Look, I can care about Solid Snake on some level, but that's because I know that the hundreds of soldiers that I've killed with him, the game is not trying to convince me those soldiers were real people. Not really. Occasionally it might pull like a little trick out and make you think about it for a second. But Last of Us 2 specifically has you kill a bunch of people. Yes, it is the point of the game. You kill a bunch of people, and then you meet those people and learn that they had perfect little lives, and they had dogs and and they, hung out in the gym and ate burritos. But it's absurd because the game made it fun to kill them. I didn't kill them out of a need of survival or necessity. I killed them because I have a shotgun that can blow their frickin' head off. So trying to teach me a lesson about not having fun killing them, it's a game. See, it is a game, and that is where it becomes absurd.
And I don't think that is what it is trying to do. I don't think the game is moralizing really about anything, except, and I think in a broader sense, saying that we as a country are dehumanizing each other.
You think this is a commentary on a... Well, I do believe Neil Druckmann said this is some sort of commentary on Israel-Palestine, and I didn't dig too deep into that one.
No, I don't. I mean, I think it's a great commentary on America. We have broken into factions, according to the chat, Biden voters and not Biden voters. I assume,
WLF.
I wonder who they're voting for. And
will you stop trying to discern the politics of my chat, sir?
No,
they'll vote for whoever they want to vote for.
Well, one of them at least is not voting for Biden. We know that.
I think a lot of people are not going to vote for Biden. I'll vote for... Let's not talk about politics. Look, you're saying that this represents where America is at.
The point I'm making is that the chat, that when he calls me a Biden voter, he's assuming
it's one guy in the chat. Get over the chat. Let the chat go.
He's assuming that I hate him.
Yeah.
The guy in the... That I don't view him as... Okay, the guy in the chat is assuming that I don't view him as human, that we're not on the same team because we don't agree about The Last of Us 2, so we must not agree about the pandemic. We must not agree about abortion. We must not agree about gay marriage. We must not agree about whatever the hell other 500 issues that if you flip one switch on one, everybody says, oh, well, you're my enemy in every single one of these arenas. And we've separated into factions. And the game does a great job of exploring how if you stray even a little bit, if I say I like The Last of Us 2, but I'm also voting for Trump, which I'm not, but if I were, your own faction wants to kill you just for stepping outside of that line one little bit. So the trans kid, Lev, he believes in the religion more than any of the other people. He's truly devoted to the religious text. He's also trans though. So all of the other people who are obviously kind of empty charlatans want to kill him just for shaving his head because he breaks some superficial rule. Deep down, he's the most religious of all of them, but the religion wants to kill him. I think it's great commentary on how if you go against your group just one little bit, they'll fucking kill you.
Okay. And I would say to you, I mean, I wonder if we're on two different pages. Is that I can understand, where you the idea of people who are contradictions or appear as contradictions to other people. Yeah, it's very interesting. But why is it communicated through? Do you think this medium is the best way to communicate that message? And do you like because
Okay,
even that? Yeah, go ahead.
It depends on what you mean by the best way. For me, it's the best way. It's not the best way if you're trying for a broad scattershot, get as many people on board as possible. The game is controversial and it makes you go through experiences like killing dogs and hanging out with trans kids that a lot of people
Was
just
that
don't want to have.
controversial? Yeah, all right.
A lot of
Fair
people
enough.
do not want to spend 10 hours talking to a trans kid about their life.
Right.
They just don't want to do that. And they don't want to spend 10 hours as a muscular woman, a hyper muscular woman who is probably on steroids, who killed your favorite character from the last game, who's also probably on steroids. People don't want to have that experience. A lot of people just don't want to do that. And so if you're saying is it the best way to tell the story, like, no, if you're trying to get the broadest possible audience, but clearly that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to provide an emotionally and intellectually challenging experience that will reward a few people a lot and piss a lot of people off.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say it's not. I appreciate bold storytelling, and I honestly do appreciate shooting Joel in the head. Just I have some feelings on that. I mean, Joel did horrible, brutal things to people, and the idea that he deserves a much better death than he handed to them, and I think that is wrong. Even though a lot of people have been arguing that he should have went out like some sort of great hero, I think it's very fitting that he died in the manner that he delivered death onto many people. And I do enjoy this idea of playing as the murderer of the last game's protagonist. It's all very interesting in theory. The problem I have is that I cannot contextualize these messages and these morals outside of the fun shooting gallery where I just murder zombies. Like, it just comes off to me, it's too abstract and too much going on. The story you're trying to, I would say the story that you are talking about hanging out with a trans kid or whatever, I think it fundamentally suffers from being attached to this goofy zombie thrill ride. Like, it turns that moral, it's like trying to take a hyper serious, novel and combine it with like some schlocky B-movie, zombie horror thing. To me, it feels like pick a lane. I feel like you can't, there's too much of a jarring disparity between those two sides of the equation.
There is definitely a jarring disparity when a trans kid is talking to you about how his own mother is going to murder him for being trans while you are drinking bottles of supplements to learn how to craft 2 pipe bombs at a time instead of 1. I agree with you. That is a very weird and singular experience. And you know what, Vito? I'm going to take my gameplay rating down to an 8 because I was thinking,
really,
yeah, because I was thinking while I was playing, there's all these gorgeous sets, right? Like everything looks amazing, but everywhere you go, you're just looking for circles with triangles, so you can just mash triangle the whole time.
Yeah, like, and your character's just going like this without looking at what they're grabbing, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and it's like that to me, that for me is kind of like what the mass murder was for you, where I'm like, I would really like my character, Abby's gonna find where the bullets are in the house. Okay, let me just look around the house because it's fascinating, and then put the bullets kind of in the same place in every house, or I honestly don't know. Just add them to my inventory when I walk in.
Just give me a box of bullets with 50 bullets in it. Nobody takes their box of bullets and just throws them and they land in every cabinet in the house. Just give me a box of 50.
I think the safe cracking mechanic was good. I liked that because it forced you to learn about the people in the house, which to me is the best part of going. My favorite part of The Last of Us 2, other than shooting women's arms and legs off and watching them roll around on the ground screaming the names of their loved ones who I'm going to also kill.
That was thrilling.
Is I really like the notes. I just love exploring the world, the notes. I love the characters that you play as. I love the characters you learn about. I love just like the world building. And I really like how the safe mechanic combined that in with getting shit. But the going around pushing triangle shit is immersion breaking for sure. I just want to look around the house. I don't want to look for rags or scissors or whatever.
Well, there becomes an interesting thought to me. Because as I was playing the game, I can think of two exact moments where I was like, all right, this is almost working for me. One part was the museum. The museum almost worked for me in terms of I enjoyed walking around the museum. I enjoyed talking with Joel. I enjoyed learning about these two characters in an intimate way. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, the museum chapter turns into a weird find a body, pick up ammo simulator again, and that kind of ruined it. And I don't know why they did that. Also, I think Joel should have. No, I'm not going to bring that up right now. The second part was.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
That I think the real. Go ahead.
Yeah, have you seen Once Upon a Time in America?
I haven't. I should. That's one of my great mistakes.
Robert De Niro is the main character. It's a 4-hour epic.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro's the main character. He's this gangster. He grows up with his friend James Woods, and like the first like hour and a half of the movie, they're kids, and then they're adults. It's this huge thing spanning his life. About halfway through the movie, he just rapes 2 women.
Robert De Niro does.
And then the main character, just rapes 2 women, and then the movie just keeps going. You never hear from them. There's no revenge. It's never even really discussed.
It's just the thing he does.
Okay, and you're like, I guess this is a complex guy. Okay, well,
that's where we're going. You know what? That's bold storytelling. I appreciate that.
I agree.
I
think that it would be I do think that the song he sings to Ellie is a little sexual romantic, where he's like, if I lose you, I'll lose myself. It's kind of
the one where he plays guitar for her.
Yeah, that's like a love song.
Yeah,
that's not a song.
I didn't know that song. So that apparently it's a Pearl Jam song. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Why didn't they do Jeremy? That would have been better. Daddy never gave attention.
Dewey Cole, I'm sorry if I spoiled Once Upon a Time in America.
I don't think the rape is the crux of that story. The crux?
I don't think so. Also, that movie's like 40 years old. You know I'm not talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? I assume.
Yeah, not Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in America.
Yeah.
Well, here comes a thought that I've had, and video game stories are fundamentally limited in a way that a movie and a book is not. Or at least they're limited out of certain topics. I don't think you could make a video game where you as the main character have to rape somebody. You could do it, but I don't think anybody would like it. Because you are specifically... if it's some sort of fantasy type thing for certain men, fine. But the majority of the audience would be like, I'm not going to play this game where you force me to jam on the triangle button to violate someone.
To jam on someone else's triangle button.
Jam on her triangle. All right, this is off the rails.
I'm not saying I would enjoy raping someone in a game because part of me wants to rape people in real life. That's arguable. I'm saying that I would just enjoy the challenge. Like in Grand Theft Auto 5, when you're torturing that guy, I think it's interesting to make the player do things that they don't want to do. I think it's cool.
See, I have a friend I was talking to recently, and he says he cannot progress in Grand Theft Auto 5 because he will not participate in that situation. He does not want to torture somebody.
Yeah, the implication that you do want to participate in all of the... Throwing a grenade into the window of a moving car with 4 people in it is worse than raping someone. It's much worse.
Sure.
You could rape 100 people, and I would still think you were a better person than if you threw a grenade into the window of a moving car.
Well, I think the difference for people is that when you throw a grenade into the car, you don't typically have to deal with the victims screaming and burning and whatever else. I mean, obviously you could.
In the last part too, you do.
You get some of that.
I think that we just, as a culture, have a weird thing where you're like, you talk about murder and you're like, well, of course I want to kill people. That sounds fun. And you're like, rape why would I want to rape someone? That doesn't sound pleasurable at all. I have no idea. When I hear about someone getting raped, I have no idea why the person did that. I've never thought a thought like that in my entire life. But yeah, mass murder, of course. Everybody wants to throw grenades into, like.
I'm sure you would argue that everyone has had a rape fantasy as well. Yes,
I am arguing that, and I think
that's what I'm hearing.
Making games where we rape each other, I think, is a fine idea.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
No, I do. Yes, I do.
Do you believe that you could make a video game that? How would you portray rape in a video game without it being the most abhorrent and displeasing thing for the audience? Without copping out and just making it a cutscene, which is just a movie in which the player has no participation.
I don't know. Why is it so much easier for you to watch someone be tortured and burned alive than raped?
You know what? It's a good question. It's a good
question. Because I would rather be raped.
Well, because here's the reason. Violence can be sensationalized in a way that it does not feel real. And we've seen this throughout all mediums, okay? When a guy explodes in a shower of blood.
Don't you watch rape and porn? Rapey situations where it's like, step, bro, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Oh my God. Oh, I'm so disgusted by your giant penis.
No, I haven't watched any comical rape porn. I honestly haven't.
Well, then what the fuck have you been doing?
I mean, I guess I've seen women placed in, uncompromising positions, and they go, "Oh no, don't do that." But yeah. Okay, but at that point, you're not telling this kind of character-driven, real emotions story like Last of Us is doing. Again, you're agreeing with my point that a game does need to maintain some level of fantasy.
Ways to do it. Somebody said the Japanese would like to disagree. Yeah, the Japanese way of portraying rape in like a fun anime way is you rape the girl, and then as you're raping her, she comes her brains out, and then everybody. It turns out that she really did want it, and rape is like a tool of giving them what they're secretly asking for. That would be the cartoony way.
This debate is not off the rails at all. All right,
it's not.
It's not.
And so, and that would be like the Metal Gear Solid version of portraying rape in a game.
would be it's fun and it's comical.
You're killing people who don't really mind being killed.
So you might as well rape people. You're not raping real people, so it's what I mean. Yeah, I'll agree with you. Go ahead.
They don't mind being. Yeah, you just take a fake character. In most games, the people you're killing don't mind being killed. Even in Grand Theft Auto, they're cracking one-liners as you're killing them. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna mess up my perm," or whatever, as you're mowing them down with a minigun.
Okay, so I mean, you could make a stupid game where you're running around with a giant dick and raping barnyard animals or whatever the fuck else. Sure, but we're arguing right now for the idea of whether or not a video game can communicate real characters and real emotions, and I don't think you could communicate a rape scene in a way that it would be respectful or enjoyable for anybody.
It's not respectful to fucking shoot people with a minigun either.
It's also not respectful. If I'm taking Last of Us 2 as at face value, I should feel horrible about stabbing 30 people in the neck, but the sheer numbers of which I'm doing it turn it into an absurdity.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to take it at face value. I guess that's what it's coming down to. Is I don't think the game is trying to be as real as you are making it. You're right. Saying the game's trying to be real, and I don't agree with that premise. And then you're saying because you kill 200 people, it's not real. And like, yeah, I know it's not. I don't think it's trying to be real. It's a zombie game that I do think deals with some real themes, just like other zombie movies or zombie stories deal with real themes. Most of them have to do with politics. And then there's a separate thing about character. That's just like, what is Ellie going through, and what is this doing to her as she goes through this horrible life?
But I don't know how you can say it's not trying. What is the point then of this piece of media which is not trying to be real, going out and hiring actual actors, getting professional voice talent, lovingly modeling, existing structures and cities down to the smallest detail? How does that benefit what you claim is an experience that does not want to take itself seriously?
It's because it's supposed to evoke real feelings, and you're saying that for you it didn't, but you're also saying that you don't like zombie horror survival games, and you're saying that no game evokes real feeling for you. So it may just be that it is impossible to accomplish this task of making you care about a video game character in an action game where you kill 200 people. But for most of the people who are talking shit about me in this chat right now, I think that they probably did care about Joel, and you're complaining about something different.
Right, I'm sure that will be a point of contention for those people as well, is that I have also made the argument that as much as you like Joel as a character, you like Joel as portrayed in the movie tangentially created through the game. The game itself damages that character by portraying his illogical actions. The game suffers by being a game, or the story suffers by being a game.
To me, that's part of what makes me connect to his character more, is that when you imagine having a child or your father, you want to be someone who would kill 500 people and doom the human race just because they love you or you love your child that much. There's something that's so powerful about the excesses that he'll go through to save her that I think is part of why people really connected with him. There's something about taking care of this girl and dooming the human race. Although I do agree with you, they kind of retcon that. In The Last of Us 1, it's more like this might be a vaccine, maybe not. In The Last of Us 2, it's like, oh, it would have been a vaccine, but you screwed it up. Yeah. So that is kind of dumb. But yeah, I think that it's to make you feel real emotions, not to make it real itself.
Okay, so here is let me try to reframe my position. And let me posit something to you, is that video games are becoming more advanced, better technology, we can do more things, more power, everything else, right? Yeah. My suggestion is that there's two different paths we could go to. One is pursuing this idea of this hyper realistic, you say not, storyline wise or whatever else, but hyper realistic in terms of look and feel and environment and whatever else. In Red Dead Redemption, your horse can poop and you see its balls, and I don't know how that makes it better.
Shrivel up when it's cold.
Yes, its balls shrivel up when it's cold. A very important piece of something to add to the game about stabbing and killing your way through millions of cowboys. There's another way to take it, which is to embrace what games have probably always been, which are abstractions. Mario is an abstraction. It's about an Italian plumber jumping around on mushrooms. We know this is not a real man. We know, and Mario obviously doesn't have a very involved story, so let me go to something else like Final Fantasy VII, which I very much enjoyed the remake. And because I accept the story as an abstraction, that I know that when Cloud has died for the 20th time, I'm able to contextualize it as I am playing a video game. He is not a real person, but I can take from his moods and from his actions, I can absorb this sort of feeling where there will always be I would say there's always going to be a disconnect between me and Cloud Strife. I always recognize him not as a real person. Whereas in a movie, you would watch a movie and you could say, I buy this as a real person. I don't think I would ever buy someone like Cloud Strife as a real person. But I would say that the moods that are conveyed through his character, through the action, that is the correct way for games to communicate a story, is through this sort of, and I know I'm being very abstract with it, but just the feeling. Whereas when it gets bogged down in this pointless chase for realism, the flaws in the flaws of the medium shine through. And the disconnect widens. The more you make the game realistic, the disconnect between myself and the story widens. And I feel like games should go down the path of something like, and then that's a random example of Final Fantasy VII, though.
What about
where it is a stylized fantasy? It is almost like, a abstract piece of art as composed to, Last of Us, which is a kind of hard, concrete story where the player is not really allowed to interpret it through their own lens. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 is not. I feel like something like Final Fantasy. Go ahead.
Hypocrisy. It sounds like you have this hypocrisy, satellite dish on your head that just starts blaring and makes you not enjoy the game when it goes off.
It's that I have the feeling when I'm in. I brought up one moment, the museum. The second moment was when there's that character who's afraid of dogs, and you teach her how to
Yeah,
play fetch with a dog. And
yeah.
that was great. There was an interesting moment. I felt something, but then it gets back into this horrific violence. Where if it was something like Final Fantasy VII, I'd go, right, it's a video game. I'm killing monsters, or I'm killing nameless grunts. Whereas in this game, I go, who cares that I played fetch with the dog? It does not connect to me then going out and slitting 50 necks. The idea that this monster took 2 seconds off from their day to have a little moment, it just strikes me as an absurdity.
See, I disagree. I think the dog is a brilliant moment because it shows you exactly from Yara's point of view, this dog's a killing machine.
Right.
That's the dog. When you see a sign that says "Beware of dog," it's the dog on the other side of the chain link fence. But when you're invited through the door by the owner, suddenly the dog's just like a fluffy, lovable character. And then to Ellie, it's a monster, and to Abby, it's a pet. And I just think that duality is what the whole game is about. That you see Ellie as a vicious, as you described her, feral animal,
Yes.
and then from her and Joel's point of view, she's just like a wounded, sad person. So I like that about it. I like that incongruity. It just sounds like it just doesn't land for you. But I wanted to ask you about Red Dead 2.
Hate it. But go ahead.
Same reason?
Yes, same reason, and that's what originally got me thinking on this topic. Was Red Dead Redemption 2, a game where I think of the great cowboy movies, which have told great stories, succinct, tight stories, and then I play something Red Dead Redemption 2 where it's two guys on a horse talking about making stew and whatever else. It's a waste of my time, half the conversations, and then again you get into these absurdities. There's the O'Driscoll gang. Oh, we've got to watch out for the O'Driscoll gang. Everywhere you go in the game, there's more of those O'Driscolls. By the end of the game, I'd probably killed 200 O'Driscolls. Like, where is O'Driscoll City? Where are all these O'Driscolls coming from? And then I always point this out, is that,
Which is the same thing as The Last of Us.
Same thing. I mean, I'm making the same exact points.
You have to kill 500 people for it to be a game.
Right. That is one of the inherent flaws of games as a storytelling device, is this idea of fun. If you made a game that wasn't fun, I don't think it would even be a game at that point.
You don't think Red Dead's fun?
Do I think Red Dead? I think Red Dead is trying to be fun.
You didn't find it fun.
I did not personally find it fun. I mean, but I can understand why other people would find it fun. I can understand that people enjoy those shooting gallery mechanics. And for me, it just kind of felt like not a whatever. But the point is that whatever amount of fun I had in it, regardless of whether or not I found the action fun or not, the plot is tangentially not connected to the gameplay. You kill 200 people and then you go have a little conversation with a nun where you go, I'm a bad man, I've done bad things, but I think I could change. How are you going to change? You're the greatest mass murderer in American history. No other man in American history has killed 300 people by his own hand. Okay? You, Arthur Morgan, in that story. Okay, every time you walk into camp, everyone in camp should cower in fear at the devil that walks among them. But
Agreed.
You, the player, have to contextualize it.
Right, so this is why I'm bringing this up, because this Last of Us, Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead
would all be better movies, is what I'm arguing.
No, they'd be good movies. I don't even agree with that. I think there's something about spending at now 40 hours with Ellie, 15 in the first game and 25 in the second, where my feelings about her are stronger than any movie character.
Then make it a TV miniseries, so you can spend all sorts of time with her.
But even in a miniseries, you can't have a scene like when Abby and Lev are crossing the bridge, and she's afraid of heights, and you have to walk her across the sky bridge with Lev. It takes like 15 minutes. You can't do that in a miniseries. It has to be actively engaging, and to watch their conversation take their twists and turns as they're going across. It's a medium that allows for bonding with characters in a way that I don't think other media allows for.
And I might agree with you in those rare instances where the game stops being a game. I would almost say it stops being a game at that point.
So I just think that you are not willing to accept the conceit that these games ask you to accept, which is you have to change your perception of what's happening when the shooting gallery starts. You have to understand that when Arthur Morgan kills 200 people, if it were a movie, it would be like 4 people. And the game just asks you to just be okay with that because nobody wants to play an action game where you only kill 4 people. And I get that you're saying that then the story should not be an action game or a game at all, but I fucking love it. I'm fine with understanding that the Joel that I'm making run around and break people's necks is not exactly the same Joel as in the cutscenes. His memory of it is not going to be exactly the same as mine. There's a little suspension of disbelief, but that also happens in movies, Vito. That also happens in movies.
That also happens in movies. Here's the thing.
The action.
Yeah, I am fine. I can see that there is something fun about playing a shooting gallery where I am occasionally rewarded with a movie. Like, I understand that concept. But I think people need to recognize that that's what it is. You are fighting towards cutscenes. It is not a congruent experience. Okay? It might be fun.
I
it might
agree
be
with
entertaining.
And you find the transitions game-breakingly jarring. Okay, here's a comment in the chat. Last of Us 2 is a despicable, nasty trash made by the left. What do you think? And what say you to that, sir?
I didn't take too many politics out of it. I feel like I never felt like it was preaching anything.
Vito.
I didn't think
that's what they're here for.
I know that is what they're here for, and that's not what they're getting. And if they don't like it,
let's give them what they want. What
you want me to? Do you want me to be the straw man? Them SJWs put all sorts of.
I think a game that forces you to make love to a trans child should be thought.
That's not in the game. What are you talking about?
There was that scene that was not leaked. Maybe you guys haven't played through the whole thing after the credits. No, seriously. What say you? It's despicable trash made by the left. What do you think?
I'm trying to think about the storyline. It's not anything I've prepared any thoughts on. I guess I was most worried that maybe the transgender character would have been some sort of I don't know, like a totem of some sort to hold up. But no, I actually felt like the transgender character was interesting. Yeah, I don't know. What would be the most politicky type thing that was even in the game, really?
Bigot sandwiches is one.
Yes, and that was actually one point where I do feel like the game, identity politics and woke culture, killed The Last of Us 2, says Adam L., who has donated $2 through Super Chat. I disagree. I don't see that.
2 seconds later, negative $2.
Negative $2. Yeah, you can take Super Chats away if the host does not agree. I did get worried when at the beginning of the game you have a stereotypical old white man who is a bigot, and I was like, you could have subverted my expectations. Make it a black lady, and then
I think that's a good idea.
That's different. Everybody can be
a black
a bigot.
Man. That would have been That would have been interesting.
Making it a white man felt like a narrative cop out. Like I know old white people are all racist. We're all terrible. I get it.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, they don't really dip too hard into, the idea.
There's another moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's another moment for me that got a little woke.
A little woke.
When Jesse finds out that Dina is pregnant with his child.
Yes.
He says to Ellie, "Is she gonna keep it?" Total.
Yeah.
This total assumption that it's 100% her choice if she's gonna kill our baby. Now, I'm pro-choice. I believe that abortion should be legal, but first of all, I think it should be some kind of fucking discussion. Like, you're gonna just kill my baby. You're gonna break up with me, start dating this girl who I'm friends with the next day.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to take care of you guys and check up on you. You're not doing your lookout duties, and I find you having sex and smoking weed, and then it's not even a discussion. Just casually, are you gonna kill the baby? Not only do I find that just annoying as like a person, I find his extreme acceptance of that, of he's just like, well, of course I'm getting sidelined while you guys like have sex and I just like take care of you. Of course it's totally fine if you kill the baby. I don't have any feelings about that. That seems a little unrealistic, especially in a post-apocalyptic environment. Like, is it easy to do an abortion? Do they have an abortion clinic in Jackson?
That's a good question. An abortion is
seemed,
probably a sloppy procedure in the post-apocalypse.
it doesn't seem
are you
worth
saying
the risk.
that you wanted the character of what's his name? I don't want to say Asian guy. Jesse, there we go. Are you saying the character of Jesse should have reacted more strongly to the idea of her being pregnant? Like, are you saying he was cucked? He was cucked?
I don't want to say that, but I will.
Okay.
He was cucked.
He was cucked.
I want to say that his ex is pregnant with his child and in this dangerous situation, and then he's just like, I guess he did push them and say, like, we have to go back. We have to take her back. I think it would have been more interesting if he was like, look, Ellie, she likes you more than she likes me. This is her choice. She can do whatever she wants, but that's my fucking baby, and we're going back to Jackson. Fuck you and your revenge. And it would have made me like him more as a character, and it would have felt more like the game has this premise of being like, we're all on equal sides. I think this, you think that. We hate each other, but really we're all human. It just felt like it was saying like, but actually abortion is 100% a woman's choice, and any man who says anything otherwise is an abusive asshole. And
it was a little too progressive in how the character reacted to his former girlfriend being pregnant.
Progressive is a point of view, Anakin. I don't find that progress.
Does progressiveness lead to suffering as well?
Yes. I think that there's a progression in saying that men have feelings. Those feelings are important, and when you abort a man's baby, he's going to have feelings about it, and that matters. I think that could be a progression from it's 100% the woman's choice, which is a progression from it's 100% not the woman's choice. I don't believe that either, but like, come on, our opinions matter.
Okay, so that was a little too forward thinking. The idea that a man should be
I don't think it's forward thinking. I think it's backward. I think that's some 70s feminism. I think 2020 should be more like, no, we all matter. Our feelings matter, and our feelings about abortion matter.
But other than that, I'd say we agree that the game is not overly political, or at least not in a way that reflects this social justice, whatever people want to say.
I don't agree that there's an agenda. I just think that liberals are more likely to become game developers and move to San Francisco or wherever the fuck Naughty Dog is and make games. Conservatives go to college and they don't major in computer science or art, and they don't go move to Silicon Valley. That's what I think.
I think that's a big assumption.
It's a big assumption. I'm saying on average.
I think that there are conservatives in those spaces, and they just don't talk out loud about it. I think that's how it goes.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that too. If you're outnumbered, you don't want to talk out loud, which is ironic because the game is about that and about how bad that is. And I think that it would be great if more conservatives made more games and told more stories from their point of view. I don't think there's an agenda. I just think if you're watching this and you're in high school or college or whatever, you're not old and fucking craggly and broken like me. If you still have enough fight in you to choose a career in game development, go make some conservative leaning games. I think that would be great.
Well, I know at least one conservative game developer who felt the need to leave the industry due to its overwhelming political slant.
Well, I think that you shouldn't back down, because that makes you a little bitch.
Well, maybe at some point I'll need to read that interview about how Neil Druckmann thinks Last of Us 2 is about Israel and Palestine, but it is about warring factions. I don't know exactly what parallels he thought he was drawing. So where are we at right now? It seems like you agree with me on this idea that there are abstractions within games that the player has to grapple with.
Yeah, Now, I don't agree with you that there's more abstractions in this type of game than other types of games. I just agree with you that you have to make concessions playing any game, and you in particular are not willing to make the concessions that this game asks you to make, or Red Dead 2. I think Grand Theft Auto you're probably more okay with because the story itself is pretty
it's goofy.
loopy.
It's a goofy little thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a comedy movie, and a comedy movie I'll make plenty of concessions, you know. If the character gets set on fire, I'll believe he can live through it for the sake of comedy. I mean, I think you think I'm being disingenuous, that I'm purposefully searching for this disconnect.
I think what's disingenuous is that you are making it sound like it's specific to Last of Us 2, but it's not really.
Okay, well, let me clear it up. No, I don't think it is specific to Last of Us 2, but Last of Us 2 is hailed as perhaps, you know, it's the end of this generation, this console generation. It is hailed by many as one of the finest examples of telling a story within video games. I don't think you'd even disagree with that. And I feel like the people who are saying that this is the way, this is how video games should be. Look at video games. They are finally on the level of movies and books. I argue that these games are they are not using the medium correctly. They are simply inferior versions of existing Hollywood movies, and that the medium could be used in a much more creative and interesting way.
I would compare this to someone who just doesn't like rap. When you listen to a rap song,
All right, go ahead.
Rap song, and 50 Cent is talking about killing people and ripping off, you know, I split your lip, you're looking like a Michael Jackson jacket with all them zippers, you know. You don't say, oh, what a horrible person this 50 Cent is. Now I don't want to hear him talk about dancing in the club. You just accept that he's not, like, I'm sure 50 Cent has probably killed people, but in his music he's killed 500 people. But you just take the concession that, like, it's not real, it's a story. And then when you get back to the chorus, you're still on board. And it just sounds like if the chorus is the cutscene and the verse is the arcadey part of The Last of Us or Red Dead or whatever, it just loses you, and you're just like, I don't really want to hear about the feelings of somebody who kills 500 people.
Real quick, Charlie Sheen 505 subscribes with Twitch Prime. Subscribe for 2 months. Thank you, Charlie Sheen. Has also gifted a tier 1 sub to Algostab. Luca Pilvabip says, imagine thinking you need to be a lefty to make games and move to California. CD Projekt Red in Poland or Kingdom Come. There's also Japanese developers. So you're dumb, is what they are saying. No. Here's what I'm going to say on your 50 Cent example, is that 50 Cent is not producing music. His music is, yes, meant to be comical, stage play, a fantasy. And as I've argued, I love fantasy, absolutely. But if he was, you know, doing spoken oration about his life and introduced the elements of I've Killed 100 Men, there'd be a difference there. I mean, the music is so abstract. The music is not a story. I don't even.
But it's still supposed to evoke an emotion. It's abstract. It's not a perfect analogy. My point is just that some people are just okay with listening to Eminem talk about raping and killing people, and then going back to his chorus about how he's a sad person, and, you know, his classmates and mother mistreated him. And then some people are like, you know what? Once you've said that, I don't care about the chorus anymore.
But, all right, so would you want to see more games like Last of Us? I don't.
I didn't say that.
You don't want to see more games like Last of Us?
I want to see more games that challenge me. Have you played Braid?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Fucking to me, it's a game. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Braid. The guy who made it is insane. I'm just making fun of him.
He's insane, but he makes pretty good games. I like Braid because at the end, well, I don't want to spoil Braid.
Yeah, don't spoil it, but there is a subversion of plot.
In Braid, you're challenged in the same way, where you have to think about what kind of person you are, and it's very woven into the puzzle solving, which is cool. But it doesn't have that. Well, it does have concessions, like you're thinking, but it's
1 2 1 2.
Enhance.
It says we're back.
You're
Yeah, we're back. We're back. Okay.
Zoom. Yeah, we should use Zoom.
We are back. Refresh the video. All right, we're back. I think we're back. It looks like you're talking. I see you talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What was I gonna say? Braid is another fantasy. I got no problem with it. It is an abstraction. It acknowledges the abstraction. It allows me to reverse a death. I feel like you're not hearing me.
No. I hear you. I'm saying that for me, the through line between you asked me if I wanted more games like The Last of Us.
Right.
I'm saying I want more games that challenge me like The Last of Us. And in a way that The Last of Us.
That's what you enjoy out of games. You like games that challenge you. Sure.
I like games that do all kinds of stuff. Okay, it's like just because I like butt stuff sometimes doesn't mean I want to do it every day. Sometimes I want the regular old, missionary eye contact, no eye contact, lights on, lights off, whatever. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. A little fisty McGee. My point. Repeat point. I will repeat my point. I was going to do that anyway. It's not that I want every game to be like The Last of Us. I will play Nier. Yeah, I saw somebody is telling me to do that. How does The Last of Us 2 challenge me? It challenges me to empathize with somebody that I fucking hate. I like the challenge of that. I like the challenge of being set up to absolutely hate Abby's guts and then have to learn about her and her life and empathize with her. I think that is, I don't know, feels like.
And I think it would have been better done through a movie, and by doing it through a game, it becomes a comical abstraction.
And so I would like more games that do that type of challenging.
Well, why don't you just go watch? Lots of movies do that. Go watch a movie. It's bad as
I get more emotional. Well, I wouldn't say always more, but often more emotionally involved in a game, and I like playing video games.
I'm gonna say this to you as the guy who loves this Last of Us. Thinks it's what did we establish? Top. Last of Us 1 and 2 represent the pinnacle of video game storytelling for you. No or yes?
I would say they represent the pinnacle of video game storytelling craft. I would say they're up there with Mass Effect 2. There's a lot of games I haven't played, so I'm not ruling out other games. I'm just saying for me, out of the games I've played, I am most impressed by the storytelling craft of Mass Effect and Last of Us.
See, my point to you is, and I hate to sound like that guy, is I think there's some stuff you got to play to put this more in context.
Oh, you're being that guy.
Being that guy.
Okay.
Have you seen the battleship Potemkin? I don't think you can comment on film and look. You ever play Dark Souls? No. I know what you haven't played because I've told you to play
Dark Souls and I quit.
You quit Dark Souls because it's too hard. Because another. Why not?
No. I played Last of Us on Survivor. I probably died 500 times. Like it's a hard game.
Stop, man.
You didn't play it on Survivor.
I didn't play it on Survivor, but I know it ain't Dark Souls.
It's hard.
Wait,
it is hard.
I think I played the first Last of Us on the hardest difficulty level. Is that Survivor? The first one? Maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Then they came out with another one called Grounded.
I'm just trying to. If you want to save some face, Max.
No, I love playing hard games. Dark Souls. I just don't get into fantasy. So you making this video. I don't like fantasy games. You making this video would be like if I made a game that said a video that said Dark Souls is trash. It's not good. And then you sit me down. And you're like, why is it trash? And I say, well, there's magic in it. And you're like, well, okay, why does that make it trash? And I say, well, when you put magic in a game, it just takes you out of it and you can't emotionally connect to it. And then you say, well, I guess you just don't like fantasy games. I don't like fantasy games. You don't like zombie games. I think it's pretty simple. You don't like survival horror, and I don't like fantasy, but I'm not sitting here making a video about how Final Fantasy VII is overrated. I just don't like it.
Well, I think that the reason I feel and I've said I like Last of Us's gameplay, and I enjoy shooting stuff. The story to me comes off as comical for reasons that I think I've explained that you almost agree with. And I feel like here's the ultimate point: is I feel like these guys, like a Neil Druckmann, If this is the kind of story you want to tell, that are far better suited to it. Okay.
Do you agree that in fantasy there is a problem of not having a clear scope, limits, and rules to the world? That's why I don't like fantasy. I don't like.
You don't like fantasy because at any point anything can happen because the rules aren't defined.
Right. I just don't like how ungrounded it is. I understand that every game has some wiggle room.
Yeah, but I would say, then why are you playing video games? All video games are a fantasy inherently. You saw that video.
There's something about someone waving a magic wand and saying, "I cast blah blah blah," and then something happening that what happens could be anything. Ellie's not going to pull out a 9mm gun and blow up a building with it.
Okay, but the rules of Last of Us is that Joel can pull out a sniper rifle and kill 15 people in under a minute. I would argue that the rules are just as ridiculous.
No, see, you're only doing that because you're being defensive. You don't really agree that the rules are just as ridiculous and loose. You don't really mean that. In Dark Souls, anything can happen.
Okay, a little girl and her dad can go on like a cross-country trip, and not one of them gets a spare bullet in the head after they kill. The rules of that universe to me are also, they're so covered in plot armor.
But they're not as flimsy as the rules of fantasy, where literally you can just conjure anything out of thin air with. My point is,
sure, I mean, Ellie's not going to start throwing fireballs, but just because, you know, the trappings of the universe are different does not mean whatever. Yeah, I kind of maybe understand what you're saying. But I'm
saying that it ruins survival horror for you, or these realistic emotion games, and it doesn't ruin them for me. And fantasy is ruined for me, but not for you. But I'm not going to make the argument that fantasy is bad just because.
And I'm not making the argument that survival horror is bad. I'm making the argument that
you're saying, you said Red Dead is bad.
Red Dead is bad. Yeah.
That's objectively not true.
Objective.
Yeah.
Subjectively not true. How is it objectively not true? What objectively makes it good?
Millions and millions of people thinking it's good.
Oh, so like when everybody thought the Earth was flat, objectively the Earth was flat.
No, because the flatness of the Earth is ultimately objective. The goodness of a video game is ultimately subjective, which means it is up to people to decide whether or not it's good.
I missed that. Did you just say it is subjective?
I'm saying that the fact that it is basically a vote, we all vote on whether things are good or bad. So you can't just.
I can objectively agree on the outcome of the vote, but that doesn't mean the game is objectively good. I can agree that a lot of people like it. Objectively, it is a game that,
to people, even if you could open their eyes as wide as possible, that is going to make most people think Red Dead is a bad game. It's just like, it's a good game. I think it
is a lovingly crafted game that ultimately fails for me. I'll even
for you.
Yeah,
that's
for
what I'm
me.
saying. Dark Souls is a great game.
All of this is subjective, of course. Although Dark Souls is objectively better than Last of Us 2. But other than that...
I don't agree. I agree that Dark Souls is objectively great.
All right,
I don't
stop.
like it. I don't want to play it, but Dark Souls is a good game.
This is for sure. The objective subjective argument we will have some other time. But you are wrong. You are actually objectively wrong about the definition of objectivity.
The reason I'm bringing it up is that you're saying The Last of Us is garbage. What you really mean is you don't like survival horror games, and you don't like games that ask you to make or to reflect on really serious things right next to arcade action.
Last of Us is fun. The plot is interesting, but ultimately it is a disjointed. I did give it a 4 because it does not. Whatever plot I enjoy. Okay, here's the question: Is the game
Last of Us 2 gets a 4? What fucking game gets a 5? That's my question.
Gets a 5?
What fucking game is a 5, but a little better than The Last of Us 2?
Let me see here. Mario Tennis. No. Well, I think just it gets better the more I can connect A Jedi Fallen Order. How's that? I'll give that a 5.
You connected to Jedi Fallen Order more than you connected to Ellie.
Yeah, because it's less ridiculous. Because when the guy cuts,
because it's more ridiculous.
It is not more ridiculous. It is less.
You're saying it's less ridiculous because there's less of a jump. It's all ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm swinging a light sword around and I'm killing aliens, and I'm able to connect. I'm not constantly looking at their actions through this lens of like, my God, I just killed an entire temple full of people. I go, yeah, but those were fucking aliens. Like, it's whatever. You know, the game is not trying to.
You were more emotionally involved, or you just don't weigh that heavily on your story rating scale.
Any time I was emotionally involved with The Last of Us were the parts where it was not a game. Okay.
Okay.
I think the parts where you are emotionally involved with the characters, you are just watching a movie at that point. And I would say that.
When were you involved in Jedi Fallen Order?
Just your actions within that game. We're talking about the storyline, whether it's better. Your actions within that game feel connected to the storyline because the storyline is not this hyper serious thing. So when I'm flipping around and doing whatever stuff, I can contextualize that fantasy story realm.
Yes.
Okay,
so
and it all makes sense.
A high weight on story cohesiveness.
Yes, cohesiveness to me, I think a story should be cohesive. I think if you're telling me a very serious story about a little girl who learns the nature of revenge, and then all of a sudden she pulls out a knife and stabs 30 people, your story has a very serious problem that is not ever really addressed. It is never covered in any way.
See,
Jedi Fallen Order does suck, Evan Lowe. That's why I gave it a 5 out of 10, not a 10 out of 10.
I think you just hate that
I hate that the game stars a woman. That's what it comes down to. I don't like women in my video games. Get them out.
I don't think that's true. No. All right, someone asked, can we hear what other games Mr. Girl thinks have excellent masterpiece stories?
Well, you've said Mass Effect.
Yeah, Mass Effect, GTA 5, Red Dead 2, Uncharted 4, Half-Life 2, Half-Life 1.
Mm-hmm. Well, Half-Life does seem to be a game which I think does a good job of having somewhat realistic characters, but kind of drawing me into a fantasy world where I do kind of understand that I am able to suspend my disbelief, let's put it that way, in something like Half-Life 2. Because Half-Life 2 has just humor, and has a slight amount of acknowledging the inherent kind of goofiness of the video game format. Go ahead.
Half-Life 2 is also not trying to make a moral statement of any kind or any observations about the world, except probably that big corporations are evil, which is something that you just agree with.
Sure.
So I think that you are more willing to go along for the ride in a game that is not trying to talk about something that deep, where you start like auditing as soon as The Last of Us 2 says, you know, we're about the dehumanization of mankind and we're about the revenge and examining our motives, I think you start saying, okay, then you better be fucking 100% airtight or I'm going to rip you apart. And I think that that's just something more specific to you, that you just don't want to be potentially lectured by a hypocrite.
I think that, if we're talking about real themes in games, I think Metal Gear Solid does a great job of communicating anti-war themes in a way that does not conflict with the gameplay. You know, yes, the murder is fun, but it's also the murder.
Well, how do you reconcile that with? I haven't played it, so I don't. I actually am just asking.
Metal Gear. Well, because Metal Gear's murder is abstract and comical, so when it does occasionally snap you back to reality by delivering some sort of moral onto you, it's through this just strange abstract lens
It's winking at you.
It's winking at you, but it's winking at you in like an interesting way. Like for some reason, I'm thinking about like I don't know what you would call it, like 70s like experimental film, and just it's yes, it is bombarding you with two different emotions. It is bombarding you with the idea that, you know, murdering all these people is fun and dropping trucks on them is fun. And then it
Yes.
confronts you with, hey, war is terrible and people die. But
And The
it
Last of
feels
Us 2 is
like
doing
the
both those
game
things as well.
understands the two concepts and is like, it's almost using the gameplay to be like, yeah, this isn't what war is. What you just did, that was your fantasy ideal of war. Actual war is hell. And only through
Okay.
experiencing war as this comical whatever thing, and then all of a sudden being given like a very real, oh shit, people are dying, there is something there that I think uses the medium in an interesting and effective way.
So I'll grant you that The Last of Us 2 tries to hide that seam as best it can, and I think does a pretty effective job. The seam between the cutscenes and the gameplay, and the incongruity between the heaviness and weight and seriousness between those two sections.
Yeah.
And you're saying that Metal Gear has the same incongruity, but it calls out the seam and makes that part of the experience and part of the joke almost.
Yes. I think you need to
And
acknowledge the seam, and I don't think Last of Us does that. Drog says these guys are trying to have a smarter conversation than them. Thank you, Drog, who has dumped on our intelligence.
Something that stuck out to me was someone said, this guy thinks the Uncharted where the big black woman beats up Nathan is a masterpiece. Apparently he just likes muscle women. So when I say the storytelling in Uncharted is good, I'm not looking at it through this hyper politicized SJW radar lens. Like, I just think that Vito is saying that he has this radar that detects if there's a seam or any incongruity or self-contradiction that is trying to be hidden. It really seems to bother Vito.
Yes.
And I'm not looking at Uncharted and keeping track of how many black women beat up white muscular men. That's just not what I'm thinking about. I like Uncharted because of the story of the marriage. I really like the story of the relationship, kind of like the same reason I like Die Hard. I love how Die Hard is all just about a marriage, even though that John McClane and Holly McClane almost have no scenes together. The whole movie is about their marriage, and you can take everything that happens in it in the context of that. And I really like the idea of a action game, an adventure that's also really rooted in a very personal, quiet, small story about a couple that's just getting bored of each other and bored of domestic life, and like how they deal with that. That's why.
I'm sorry, which game are you talking about right now? I missed it for some reason.
Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4. I did not play Uncharted 4, so I cannot comment on how well
it is.
But when you say something like when you say to me
good.
like this idea of like, could you talk about a marriage, you know, falling apart through the lens of video games? And I think, yeah, there are many interesting ways to do it. And the last way I would try to do it is to make what I assume is like other Uncharted games, and is just basically a Hollywood movie with some shooting stuff thrown in there.
Uncharted is like, I would say Uncharted. You might like it. You should play Uncharted 4. It's like The Last of Us in that it explores.
I'm sure I'll like it as much. Look, I liked Last of Us 2. I have to say the story. As much as I like the story, I have to acknowledge the story. And I almost like the story. I think the story has issues.
I think
I have trouble coming to terms with the story. Go ahead.
I think The Last of Us pisses you off. I think you also like it and admire it for how well made and told it is, but I think there's something about trying to hide that seam that just pisses you off.
I don't know. I mean, don't ascribe it to anger. I don't know if it's anger. It's
rage.
It's rage.
It's rage.
I think it is an uncomfortable feeling when the game is showing me this realistic story, whatever you want. If you don't want to say it's realistic, there are parts of it that are realistic. when it's Ellie and Abby having a big fight in the water or whatever else, right? And these two characters have been driven to their whatever length, and yeah, it's very interesting. If this was a movie and I knew both of these characters or a miniseries or whatever, it would have a very emotional impact on me. But then I also at any point can make a video, which is a 1 hour video of Ellie just circling Abby with a knife.
Yeah.
And there's just something there that I don't know. It's I feel like I've tried to explain it a couple of different ways. And I think you have gotten to it, that there is the seam. There's the seam between the real and the abstractions of giving me power over the character. And once you hand me that power over the character and allow me to tell the story, authorial intent is out the window. I can just have Ellie spin in a circle like a moron. And you can't tell these stories. You can't tell a truly effective story without acknowledging the seam in some way and embracing the seam. I look at a game like Shadow of the Colossus, which you probably also haven't played, right?
I have, motherfucker.
You have? Motherfucker.
I have.
Another game I was going to say you should play is Persona 4. But,
Oh, so because I played this game, you gotta whip out.
No. It's just something that's been in the back of my head, and I wanted to bring it up. But you just keep talking, and you never shut up, so I never get any fucking words in. Shut up, it's my turn. Shadow of the Colossus is a game where, again, I talked about this earlier. It's not necessarily conveying a plot. It is conveying a mood. It is conveying an overall sense of various feelings and emotions that the player can interpret in a very abstract way. Okay, there's nothing truly concrete about this world. You're right, we don't know necessarily the rules of how this universe exists. It is a fantasy universe. We don't know who built these structures or anything else. Very otherworldly things. And I think that allows the player to interpret the plot in a very interesting and artistic way. I guess what I feel is that games, to tell, if they are going to be a storytelling medium, should almost be like an abstract artistic medium where the events are very interpretive, where it is kind of open-ended as to what these visuals and settings and whatever mean. I don't think The Last of Us 2 is interpretive, or at least not as Neil Druckmann intended it. I think Neil Druckmann says, this is the plot, fucking deal with it. You, the player, you, the player who supposedly have control over this character, you have no input on this story, and I do not want you to not only affect it in any way, I want you not even to believe that your actions within it are affecting the plot in any way.
Okay, so let's go back to movies then. You're saying, to me, Shadow of the Colossus, I think, is another great pinnacle of game storytelling. In exactly the opposite way, in the way that you're saying. It's abstract, you take from it what you want, you are given pieces, and you have to kind of put them together. I'm trying to think of a movie that would be like that, where like you don't quite get what's going on, but you...
Beyond the Shadow of the Valley of the Dolls. Or no, what's that stupid one that came out that wasn't even good? I don't know, just movies that kind of hit you with weird stuff. And honestly, I'm a bad person to go to.
Like Drive. Have you seen Drive?
Yeah, Drive is a bit abstract. Yes.
Yeah, lots of holes. You got to kind of fill in for yourself who everybody is and what they're about, and it bridge draws you in that way. I think that Metal Gear Solid is more like Quentin Tarantino. He's telling you a story, but he's acknowledging he's telling you a story. There's goofy violence contrasted with realistic violence, like in Pulp Fiction. There's a guy getting his head blown off, and then there's a guy getting raped. The rape is taken very seriously. The guy getting his head blown off is a one-off joke, but there's an acknowledgement of the inconsistency there. And then I think that The Last of Us is more like Spielberg. It's more straightforward. I'm going to try to provide you with a seamless experience, and if you notice the seam, just try not to focus on it, because that's not the point. Just come along with me for the ride and trust me. And I think once the storyteller starts telling you things about morality or right and wrong, or not necessarily morality, more just like human nature, you stop being very trusting. You're more just like, I think you're contradicting yourself. Fuck you. And you're right. He is. There is no real way. I agree. What I'm saying is that I and lots of people apparently are okay with making that concession. You just aren't. But I would counter that in the games that you like Metal Gear Solid, you're making concessions that I don't want to make, but I'm not saying that that's a flaw in the game. It's just not for me.
I think, yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is a subjective matter, obviously.
Yeah.
You subjectively are able to overlook what I believe are glaring inconsistencies. And
I want to overlook
you
them.
want to, yes, you do want to overlook them because
I want to feel, I want to love the characters and feel all of the whole emotional roller coaster. I want to go along for the ride.
I understand what you want, and I empathize with it in a way because as I'm playing Last of Us, and there are those
little tickle. You got
there
a little
are those
tickle
moments.
here.
Yes, there are the moments with the little tickle. But when I get the little tickle, what I start thinking about is, well, how could you do this correctly? Because those little tickle moments do not, to me, fit into Last of Us 2. Okay, the moment where you teach a girl who is afraid of dogs how to play with a dog, to me that feels like and again, this is a very complicated subject, and it gets into the nature of what is a game. Does a game need a win or lose state? Does a game need, a way that you can say, I have won the game? A game, again, do you need to win or lose? Playing with a dog in virtual space where there are no rules, to me, I hesitate to call that a game. And I would say that I do think there is value
interactive
drama in the way like something like Detroit Become Human, which was a flawed game. It was not perfect, but there were parts of it where I went, this is a very interesting way to tell the story. I do not feel like I am being pulled out of it, and whatever inconsistencies there are, I can contextualize them in an interesting way. I feel like there's value in that, but games which by their very nature, and I don't know if you disagree with this, need to be fun. I feel like that nature of needing to be fun fundamentally affects what kind of stories you can tell. So if you're trying to tell me this dark, depressing fucking story about the nature of grief and loss combined with super fun zombie murder game, yes, the seam is too obvious to me and it doesn't work. I would prefer that you take these real elements that do work and find a way to put them into something else.
You feel the same way about Red Dead and
yes,
tons of these other AAA self-serious games.
Really quick, Robert Kravik has super chatted €5 and says that Vito identifies as a black lesbian. That is correct. Oranzer has super chatted €10, says you have both missed that Abby's dog is clearly a metaphor for the N slur, and the dog's relationship/interactions with the main character reflects their feelings towards its use in rap music. Okay, very deep there. King Bash with $5 says The Last of Us 2 should have seen the Harley Quinn show. If you're going to kill someone, make sure everyone is dead or they'll come for revenge. That is very true. And one reason that I understand the people who are upset with how Ellie was characterized in the game. Ellie's character has done no favors. But that's a separate topic entirely. Let me think here. I mean, I feel like we've covered some ground. Obviously, you need to actually play some video games. Go ahead.
I play games for fun sometimes, but I think that I'm more interested in the challenge, the fun of overcoming a challenge, in including an emotional challenge, and the catharsis of experiencing horrible things in the game that mirror things in my life or that I feel can help me reflect on my life. I wouldn't say it's therapeutic, but it's like it helps me connect to my emotions in a way that I find very engaging and not necessarily fun.
I will say that I'm an idiot, and I liked Death Stranding, a game where you got to walk up a mountain, because honestly, I feel incredible amounts of accomplishment when I get to the top of that idiot mountain. And it does feel like a congruent... again, it communicates a feeling where the game is like, this sucks, you're going to fall, you're going to whatever else, but it conveys this feeling of, you did it, motherfucker, you did it. And I feel like games are very good at conveying those senses.
Pride and accomplishment is what that
but
is.
it conveys it through gameplay. And I don't know what Last of Us conveys through the gameplay. I don't think the gameplay adds to the plot in any way. I feel like the gameplay is just there. I'm trying to think of a moment where like something in the gameplay informed the plot, and I guess the scene where the fight where you have to hide from Ellie and try to sneak around her, and the tension of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. There's a moment where it kind of works, but the parts where I'm like,
it really works.
I'll say it works in some way. Then Ellie starts setting up little bombs, and it becomes a bit comical again.
But that's kind of on purpose.
Maybe.
She sets up the bomb, and Abby says, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah. And that's one. That is one part where the game maybe admits to itself that it's a game. Right. But mostly, I just feel the disconnect is too wide for me. I don't, and whatever plot is there, I would love to see this game as an interactive drama, like something like a Detroit Become Human, where I make decisions and maybe have limited interactions with the environment and whatever else. And Ellie doesn't have to kill 100 people. You can tell the story where a couple people die in a very, meaning, and it doesn't come off as bizarre.
I agree that would be less incongruent, and certainly you would like it more. I think I enjoy the harrowing experience of the combat and how disturbing and fragile you are, or how disturbing your fragility is, that you just get shot in the head, or watching yourself die all these different gruesome deaths. And
there is something to it, honestly. Yes,
I like killing people. I
know. But isn't that a problem? Isn't that a problem?
No.
Isn't that a problem for the story the game is trying to tell?
How am I strawmanning Vito?
Isn't it a problem for the story the game is trying to tell, that the game tells you killing people is super fun, and also when you kill people, their families suffer and whatever else. And unlike Metal Gear Solid, which does so in an absurdist way that purposefully hits you in the face with that comparison, it just kind of it forces, it just wants you to be like, yeah, you know what's going on here. It's like, no, I just had fun shooting that guy. It's like I said, I got real mad when Neil Druckmann would not let me stab the pregnant lady. He tells me killing everybody in the game is fun, but you can't stab a pregnant lady for some reason. Why not? It's fun to kill everybody else. Why is it not fun to kill the pregnant lady?
You're mad because that's a place where the seam is showing.
Yes, where they have ripped agency away from me, because me, the player, cannot truly engage in the storyline. It is all flim flam and circumstance. Algosto gives $5 in the money hole, says Last of Us 2 is spectating a narrative rather than playing a game. And that's one way to put it. I can't completely disagree with that.
I would say that's true. I think that a lot of the game part is the arcade shooter in between, as you're spectating the narrative. I agree with that. I don't know. I don't care if it's a game. I just love it. I like the arcade parts.
All right.
It doesn't bother me, and it bothers you.
I think at this point, I feel like everybody's points have been made. Why don't we have final thoughts? I'll have you go first. Max, final thoughts.
My final thought is that The Last Jedi...
No.
...is not a cinematic failure.
You cocksucker, it is a cinematic failure. Don't you dare.
This has nothing to do with whether I like to suck cock. I think I'm going to, make a rebuttal video.
To my Last Jedi video. Yeah, Max, do you actually like The Last Jedi? Real quick. Do you like The Last Jedi?
The first time I watched it, I thought it was the second best Star Wars movie after Empire.
Okay, and then you thought about it and changed your mind.
And then I thought about it. That was walking out of the theater. Thinking about it for a couple weeks, I was like, actually, that was bad. it looks so good. It's so smooth, but it's got a lot of problems. And then, and I agreed with your video. And then I thought, and then after Rise of Skywalker came out, I was like, oh, I get it now. Rian Johnson was right and Vito was wrong, and it's still falling into place. I can't quite articulate it just yet. I see what he was trying to do and what I think he may have actually successfully done, and it's kind of similar to The Last of Us 2, where it's like I wanted it to go a certain way, and now that I've seen it go that way, I realize I didn't actually want that. I wanted a reunion with Han and Luke and Leia, and I realized that I didn't actually want that. I think I wanted what Rian Johnson wanted. I think Rian was right, and I think you're wrong, and I'm going to make a video about it.
All right, well, way to hard pivot this conversation.
It's not a hard pivot. It's a similar thing.
It's a no.
For you, it's not, but I think for a lot of people, The Last Jedi and The Last of Us 2 are very similar.
I'm looking forward to real quick. Robert Catholic gives €2. Says I don't need to shoot 50 dogs to have a good time. Max says $3. Last of Us 2 is to games what musicals are to movies. Interesting thought. I like that. Yeah, and Algo says we already covered Algo Slav. Sorry, I missed a couple of super chats. Mr. Girl, if you would like to make a Last Jedi rebuttal.
Last of Us rebuttal.
A Last of the Last Jedi rebuttal.
I don't think it's fair for you to say that The Last of Us 2 is trash and not also say that Red Dead is trash for the exact same reason, if that is what you believe. I think that really what you're saying is that serious-ish games with arcade gameplay are trash. And Last of Us 2 just happens to be one of those. But I don't think you specifically think Last of Us 2 is trash. And I would go as far as to say, Vito, that amongst those games, that type of self-serious, we're going to make a real point interspersed with arcade game gameplay, you probably think The Last of Us 2 is one of the better ones.
Sure. I have trouble coming to terms with the fact that I really enjoy killing people in that Last of Us game. I also have terms coming to fact with, I think there is a decent story in there, and a story that I could see myself enjoying being told. I believe the way I am being told that story is fundamentally... Here's what it comes down to. If you gave me all the cutscenes of Last of Us 2 as a separate experience and none of the shooting and none of the killing, maybe I'd give that an 8 out of a 10. But I have to, if I'm going to be a game critic, I think that a game critic has to contextualize all parts of the game as part of the plot. I think that when Ellie kills 50 people, I can't say, well, that's not part of the plot. It has to be. If it's not, then again, you're just fighting for the right to watch a movie in between a meaningful, unrelated shooting gallery. So, that story, the core story, whatever you want to call it, the cutscene story, very interesting. It's got a lot of interesting ideas in there, and it's something I could see myself enjoying. But when I have to mesh it with the gameplay, which is a terrible word, I don't even know if I want to use the word gameplay. When I have to mesh it with elements of the story, the interactive elements do not fit in with that plot. They do not connect in a way that I find tangible. Also, you are an idiot, and I hate you. And you are a cuck, liberal, Biden voting scumbag. You know, I
you
love
don't hate The Last of Us.
You know I love you.
You don't hate me, and you don't hate Biden.
I don't hate Last of Us. I like the killing. The plot is silly. It's a silly plot about a woman who stabs 1 million people in the neck. And the fact that you are going to defend The Last Jedi.
Somebody just said Mahler is going to do a 6-hour take on this debate. If my name graces Mahler's mouth once, it is going to be a fucking war. Because I hate Mahler.
Oh no!
I hate Mahler.
I know you do.
I know. I don't even.
Are you calling Mahler out right now? This is Mr. Girl
I'm
calling out Mahler, which I hear this from him a lot. Is that Mahler is a bad
Mahler
man? Yes.
Mauler gets under my skin. I don't know if he's a bad man personally, but the way he talks about Star Wars just really pisses me off.
What Mauler content have you watched?
I watched his like 4 hour Force Awakens and Last Jedi videos, and as he was talking, it's like I really wanted to like him, and then he would just keep putting like little things in there that offended me, possibly as a liberal, that just really pissed me off, and I just want to like tear him apart. It's just the way he thinks. He's like the king of I'm objectively right and there's no subjectivity to be had.
He does very much believe in objective criticism, which is something you oddly seem to be arguing for earlier.
Well, I'm not arguing for objective criticism. I'm just arguing for the idea that it's not really fair to say a game or movie or whatever that is cherished by millions is trash. I just don't think that makes sense semantically to say that it is objectively bad.
Everybody likes that Bible, and I don't want to read that book anytime. But they don't read it either.
Yeah, but it's not. You can't say the Bible is bad.
I think you could argue the Bible is bad. I think there's an argument to be made.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a strong argument.
It's a long, very odd book with some weird morals in it. It's got some weird ideas in that book.
I'm the fucking left wing as all hell, and I love Mauler. Good for you. I can see why you like him. Part of why I hate him is that I like him. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got a fun way of talking. You can't hate it. All right. I think we've place. You're an idiot. Yeah, I'm right. Winner of the debate is Vito because it is my channel and I win every debate by default. But thank you for trying. And the fact that I really do look forward to you trying to justify The Last Jedi. I don't know where are you living now again? What state is this? Oregon. I don't know what they put in the water in Oregon, but if you could ship me some liters of whatever's coming out of your tap, I would like to be on that funky juice as well. Anything else you need to say? Anything else?
For me, Vito?
Mr. Girl, why don't you give us a plug? Where can we find you, Mr. Girl?
You can find me at youtube.com/Mr. Girl, or just search for Mr. Girl, or just search for trying to think of what a good video would be.
To be clear, it's my last MR Girl. Do not spell out the full word Mr.
Yeah, just MR Girl.
MR Girl, you're going to find him on YouTube. And let me be clear,
it's beautiful.
To those of you who are watching,
a lot cheaper than LA.
There's a reason I bring Mr. Girl on here, is that even though we do disagree, I find him to be a very interesting speaker, has very interesting takes. Sometimes takes that are far braver than I would expect any man to speak out loud. And also a very surprising. I think your video editing surpasses mine. You have some good-looking stuff. I'm occasionally very jealous of the production quality of what you're putting out, buddy.
Well, it is a great honor to have you say that, and I am am jealous of you, as I've told you many times.
Yeah, it sucks for you. You're trying to have all these like deep thoughts, and I just make stupid Star Wars videos and get all the views. That's what you get. That's what you get, you SJW punk.
you get what
Come up in my house, you get wrecked. Real quick, we have everyone. Please do subscribe to Mr. Girl. Mr. Girl on YouTube. Let me hit these last couple super chats. Robert Kralvik with €5 says it is a bad game, and Double Dropped has a $5 question. Can you like something that is objectively bad, Mr. Girl? Is that possible?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Like certain foods, like I would say, like I don't know.
Like I like drinking women's urine, but most people would say that's bad. Right. Exactly. But I would say subjectively, even though objectively it is bad, I subjectively drown myself in women's fluids.
Yeah, like the game Hatred. It's not a good game, but I like it. I enjoy it.
I haven't played Hatred. I should play Hatred. MR Girl is one word, right?
Yeah, just search.
I think that's the problem is people try to put a space between it. Put MR Girl as a one word. Yeah, you got to work on your metrics somehow. Start putting Mr. Girl with a space in your tags.
Really?
Yeah. You got to put every possible spelling of it in your tags. Put Mr. spelled out girl as a tag as well.
All right, I'm gonna spend the entire day tagging all my videos.
I think that's smart. I think that's what you should do. We
Okay.
got 250 people watching. God bless all of you. And,
yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
Oh,
Thanks for
and
having me.
one
It's been
last
an
thing
honor.
I will say. Well, thank you for coming on, and hopefully me and you will do some more. I do enjoy talking to you, and I find you a very interesting personality,
I feel
even
the
though
same
you
way
are
about you.
probably the biggest idiot I've ever encountered in my life.
Yeah, I
Did
understand.
I just? Oh, I just screwed up the. I just tried to find you, and I went away from the Hangouts. What was I gonna say? Real quick, everybody who's watching this, one thing I would love to mention to you is if you head on over to twitch.tv/The Vito Show. Right now, for some reason, YouTube does not do a very good job of delivering notifications. So if you are interested in watching these streams, not only that, but you'll get to see them in higher quality. Twitch.tv/The Vito Show. Thanks everybody for showing up, especially me for putting up with Mr. Girl. I am the true champion of this situation.
Hey, I have to put up with myself 24 hours a fucking day, man.
Yeah. People are saying you should go on EFAP. I would like to see that. I would love to see you fight with Mauler. I think it would be hilarious. Robert says we need you on Nerdrotic. Robert, you let Nerdrotic know. I'm always up for a good debate. As long as I don't have to do too much research.
Will you put a link in the description of the video?
I believe I already did put a link in the description. So if people refresh it, you should be able to find a link to Mr. Girl's channel. Please do subscribe. He's a good friend of mine.
It was an honor. Thank you.
All right, God bless Max, and we will be talking to you later. Have fun.
All right, you too.
All right. That was Mr. Girl. Everybody, thanks for coming on by. I guess you can't see me anymore because I just quieted that thing. But fantastic debate. We had a good amount of fun, and I do thank you all for coming out. We got more cool videos coming soon. Once again, twitch.tv/The Vito Show. Great place to subscribe, and find Mr. Girl on YouTube. All one word, MR Girl.